Welcome, dear listeners, to another tale that explores the crossroads of life, where decisions shape destinies and paths diverge. Today, I bring you a story that speaks to the courage it takes to venture into the unknown, to walk the difficult path when the easy one beckons with comfort and familiarity. It's a story about a traveler who finds himself at a forked path, and the choice he makes that changes everything. As you listen, I encourage you to reflect on the choices you've made in your own journey, and consider what it means to take the road less traveled. There once was a traveler named Arik, who had wandered across many lands, seeking adventure and wisdom. With each journey, he gathered not only experiences, but also countless stories that shaped his understanding of the world. He had walked through lush valleys, crossed roaring rivers, and climbed steep mountains. But one day, after many months of travel, he found himself at a crossroads, a place where two paths diverged sharply. Arik stood at the forked path, gazing at the two roads that stretched out before him. The first path was broad and smooth, winding gently through a sunlit meadow. It was lined with flowers, and birds chirped merrily along its edges. It was a path that seemed to promise ease and comfort, a path that many had taken before. The second path, however, was narrow and winding, disappearing into the shadows of a dense forest. Its entrance was overgrown with thorny bushes, and the air around it seemed heavy and silent, as if it were holding its breath. The two paths seemed to symbolize two very different journeys. The first was one of certainty and predictability, a well-worn road where the destination was known and the obstacles were few. The second was a journey into the unknown, fraught with uncertainty and potential danger, but also filled with the possibility of new discoveries and hidden rewards. Arik's heart wavered as he stood at the fork. He had heard stories from other travelers about both paths. The broad path led to a bustling town, where travelers could rest and share tales of their journeys. It was a place of camaraderie, good food, and warmth. The narrow path, however, was spoken of in hushed tones. Few who took it ever returned, and those who did spoke of daunting challenges and mysterious encounters. But they also spoke of breathtaking vistas and experiences that could not be found elsewhere, treasures that could not be measured in gold, and lessons that could not be learned on any other road. As Arik pondered his choice, a fellow traveler approached. The man had a cheerful demeanor and a light step, clearly accustomed to the comforts of the broad path. He greeted Arik with a smile and pointed to the well-trodden road. "Ah, my friend," he said, "you're at the fork. I remember when I stood here, just like you. I took the broad path, and it was everything I hoped for, easy, pleasant, and filled with good company. Come, join me. You'll find the journey smooth, and we can share stories along the way." Arik hesitated, tempted by the man's offer. He could picture the ease of the journey, the laughter around a fire, and the satisfaction of reaching a familiar destination. But as he glanced once more at the narrow path, something stirred within him, a quiet, persistent voice urging him to consider what lay beyond the thorns and shadows. "Thank you," Arik replied to the man. "But what of the other path? The one through the forest?" The traveler's smile faltered, and he shook his head. "That path? It's not worth it. Too risky. You never know what you might face in those woods. I've heard tales of travelers getting lost, of wild creatures lurking, and of trials that test your very spirit. Why choose uncertainty when a safe, pleasant journey lies before you?" Arik nodded thoughtfully. The traveler's words made sense, and yet, he could not shake the feeling that the narrow path held something more, something that could not be found on the well-traveled road. He thanked the traveler for his advice, but even as he spoke, his feet itched to move toward the forest. The man smiled again, then set off down the broad path, whistling a carefree tune. Left alone, Arik turned his gaze once more to the fork. He thought of his journey so far, the times he had chosen the easy way, and the times he had taken the harder route. He realized that it was during the hardest parts of his travels that he had grown the most. It was in facing the unknown and conquering his fears that he had learned the deepest lessons. Each time he had pushed past his comfort zone, he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled. With a deep breath, Arik made his decision. He tightened his pack, adjusted his cloak, and stepped onto the narrow path. As he moved forward, the shadows of the forest closed around him, and the sounds of the meadow faded away. For a moment, he felt a pang of doubt. Was he making a mistake? Should he have taken the easier road? But then he took another step and another, and as he did, he felt something shift within him, a sense of purpose, of resolve. He was no longer just walking a path. He was embarking on a journey that would test him, challenge him, and ultimately shape him in ways he could not yet imagine. The first few miles of the path were grueling. The thorny bushes snagged at his clothes, and the uneven ground forced him to watch each step carefully. There were no signs to guide him, no other travelers to offer support. He felt the weight of solitude pressing down on him, and more than once he considered turning back. But each time doubt crept in, he reminded himself why he had chosen this path. He wasn't looking for the easy way. He was looking for growth, for the chance to discover something new about himself and the world. So he pressed on, pushing through the underbrush and climbing over fallen trees. Days turned into nights, and still the forest stretched on. Arik encountered challenges that tested not only his physical endurance, but also his mental fortitude. There were steep inclines that left him gasping for breath, rivers that seemed impossible to cross, and dark, winding trails that threatened to lead him astray. But each time he faced a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, he took a deep breath, gathered his strength, and found a way forward. One day, after a particularly difficult climb up a rocky slope, Arik reached a clearing. He stood at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the forest below. The view took his breath away. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. From this height, he could see the broad path far below, a thin, winding line that seemed so small and distant now. In that moment, he felt a sense of accomplishment that he knew he would not have felt had he taken the easier road. As he stood there, gazing at the world spread out before him, he realized something profound. The challenges he had faced had not only tested him but had also revealed parts of himself that he hadn't known existed. He had discovered reserves of strength, patience, and resilience that had remained hidden until they were needed. He had learned to trust himself, to navigate through uncertainty, and to keep moving forward even when the way was unclear. The path ahead was still uncertain, and he knew there were more trials to come. But he also knew that he was no longer the same traveler who had stood at the forked path, hesitant and unsure. He was now a traveler who had faced the unknown, who had embraced the difficult journey, and who had come to understand the value of choosing the road less traveled. As night fell and stars began to twinkle above, Arik set up camp in the clearing. He sat by the fire, reflecting on his journey and what lay ahead. He thought of the other traveler, now likely resting comfortably in the town at the end of the broad path. For a moment he wondered what it would have been like to take that road, to be surrounded by warmth, comfort, and companionship. But as he looked up at the night sky, clear and vast above him, he felt no regret. The path he had chosen had been hard, yes, but it had also been deeply rewarding. He had faced his fears, overcome obstacles, and emerged with a deeper understanding of himself and the world. And that, he realized, was worth more than any temporary comfort or ease. The next morning, as the first light of dawn touched the treetops, Arik packed up his camp and continued down the narrow path. He didn't know what lay ahead, whether more challenges or new discoveries, or perhaps even greater trials. But he walked with a steady step and a light heart, knowing that he had made the right choice. Because sometimes the greatest rewards come not from the destination, but from the journey itself. And the road less traveled, though fraught with uncertainty, is often the one that leads to the most meaningful and transformative experiences. So, dear listeners, the next time you find yourself at a forked path in life, ask yourself, which road will help me grow? Which road will push me to become the person I am meant to be? It may not be the easy path, but it may just be the one that changes your life forever. Thank you for joining me on this journey with Arik. If this story resonated with you, or if you faced your own forked path, share your experiences in the comments below. Let's celebrate the courage it takes to choose the road less traveled and the wisdom gained from it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, uplift, and encourage us all to walk our own unique paths.